Welcome back to the pipeline. Could not be more pumped to be here today. This is a crypto Twitter powerhouse episode, joined by some absolutely legendary guests. Today we have Ansem and Kevin, also known as @Intern. Thanks for coming on, guys. How's it going?
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dan.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, couldn't be more excited here. Sure, everyone with a pulse on crypto Twitter follows you guys, but here at the pipeline, we're trying to reach some new users as well and help bring them into crypto. So if you don't mind giving a quick 30-second intro and whatever you're willing to share on your crypto background, let's run that alphabetically if you don't mind kicking off, Ansem.
Cool. So my crypto background, I first learned about crypto when I was studying in school. I went to Georgia Tech for comp sci and minored in business. And for one of my business courses, it was an emerging technologies class, and the professor had a focus on Bitcoin for one of the parts of the class. That was my original intro. I actually got kind of lucky. It was like I want to say junior, was it junior or senior? Junior of college, I think. So that's like when I first started learning about crypto. Didn't buy any in 2016, but just knew about it and had like the background knowledge on it. And then when I graduated, I was working as a software engineer, and my mentor was big on crypto, like trading it a ton outside of just working as a software engineer. And he was telling me like, yo, you got to get into this, like learn how to do this. I was like, well, okay, I know a little bit about what this is. Let me look into it more. So that's when I started researching more. Um, and then, yeah, I was just working as a software engineer, trading crypto on the side, basically until mid 2021. Did pretty well 2020, 2021, was just like full-time trading on my own. And I've been really deep in the weeds in crypto since then. Like my crypto Twitter account has blown up since last cycle. Like I want to say before last cycle, I probably had like 3K followers. And I was just sharing all my trades on Twitter and ended up with like 100K at the end of last cycle. So that's why most people, I know like a lot of people in crypto from that, just made a lot of connections from really just making trades on CT.
And you've had similar growth this past few months as well, right?
Yeah, dude, my followers this month is probably the most I've ever gained in a month. I think I'm at like plus 30, 35, 30K, 30 or 35K in the past month, which is insane. Um,
Those are bull
and
market numbers.
bull market numbers.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, "Where's retail?" I'm like, "Bro, they're following my Twitter account. Like, they're right here." The influx of people is coming back extremely fast, and you can tell like a lot of the traders who have been trading this bear market are getting antsy with how fast everything has been moving these past few months. Like people didn't expect this rip to happen so quickly, but what you got to consider is how much we got hit in 2022. Like our entire industry almost blew up when FTX happened. Like all the lenders got blew up. All that stuff happened on top of what the Fed was doing with restricting like people's spending by raising rates and all that. So stocks are now back at all-time highs, but crypto's still minus 50% off the high. So if you have that at the same time that you have all of these new participants starting to come to the market, that's why stuff is repricing so quickly. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I feel
CT's
like
been crazy.
yeah, I feel like a lot of your I still remember I can't remember what month your up only episode was, but I remember you went on and Kobe was like, I mean, I was kind of following you, and then it was like 6 or 7 calls directly in a row that just absolutely crushed. Um, he's like, you just called every single thing right in a row. Which like I still remember that quote, and then I feel like since probably I don't know, maybe even as early as like April or May this year, like it's been one of the. I feel like you're just on a hot streak too, just like Solana from the rafters, just yelling at everyone who will listen,
Off
and
the top rope, bro.
at like $20, and then
Yeah.
everything just pumping through there. Um, but yeah, it's been. I mean, there was like Unibot. I can't remember some of the others. Maybe Pepe. I
Pepe.
can't remember if that was one of yours. Bonk, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel
dude.
like it's like multiple calls in a row, then followers just start ripping.
Yeah, especially when you're right publicly. Like you can't really fake being right in real time, live on the timeline, and calling stuff before it happens. Like you can fake P&L screenshots. You can fake saying that you did this in like Discords or other telegrams, like you sent somebody this message. But if you like post a trade in real time while you're taking the trade, then give people updates to the trade, there's nothing people can really say to be like, oh, this guy didn't know what he was talking about. And in 2021, I hit like a lot of those rotations. It was like Solana, AVAX, even Luna, like DFK was a big one. Axie was honestly a big one too.
Mhm.
And I hit a lot of those back to back to back, and people were like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, how are you not missing?" And it's been similar towards the end of this year, but it was funny because entire year I'm saying I know Solana is eventually going to reprice. It's like going sideways for a while. I don't know when it's going to reprice, but I'm like very confident it's at least going to go back to where it was prior to when FTX blew up. And I think it's going to gain a lot of ground on Ethereum. People were calling me stupid the entire year. So a lot of people didn't expect this move to happen, which is why it's like such a wild thing how quickly it's happening.
Yeah, it's a similar concept. I feel like when people go short and then
Yeah,
they have to buy back at a certain level, right? So like people try to run up the shorts. I feel like a lot of that, like people might not have actually been short Solana, but like mentally, right? They were like, no, I'm not buying that. And then once it hit a certain price, they're like, they flip and they're like, all right, well now I need to be bullish. So it's like you get a reflexive price action on it.
yeah, it's
Um,
a combination of positioning and also like your mental models of the market. Like even if they didn't have a position, they were thinking, I'm never going to touch Solana. There's nothing going on over there. I would never use that chain. And then if you see Solana flipping Ethereum in 24-hour DEX volume, see Solana flipping Ethereum in 24-hour NFT trading, you bridge over to the chain and it's like you can do everything you were doing on ETH, but for 1/100th of the cost and 10x faster. It's like, well, now I have to reconfigure how I think about the market. And a lot of people had their portfolios all in ETH. And even if you are a big ETH believer, it really makes no sense not to at least hedge by having some exposure, I think, to Solana or other L1s that may have different advantages. So I think that's why it's been moving so fast. Like the
mhm.
Sol ETH chart is literally just up only.
It's insane.
It's just
It's
up
insane.
only.
I
um,
Uh,
think I think one thing that stood out to me most was not only that you're right on a recurring basis, but also the conviction with which you tweet is really entertaining to see. It's really fun to like follow along and be like, wow, this guy is not only correct, but he is shilling for the rafters, and he's 100% correct, right?
I, I would love to ask on like building on what Danny's saying. What do you think the best trade that you've ever made is? And I'll give you a second to think about it, so I'll ramble and give a little bit more justification for the question. But it could be something that like you publicly were just yelling about, right? Like obviously Solana is one of those. It could be the one that you had the highest P&L on. But just like in general, do you have like one or two in your head that stand out as like this? I was the highest conviction, and it turned out to be right.
So actually was a big trade for me, and it was a big trade for a few reasons. Like P&L wise, it was up there with one of my top, but I also had an aversion to trading it. Like I thought Axie was basically a scam. I was like, I wasn't really big on crypto gaming like that. I looked at the game, I was like, this isn't that great of a game. But I kind of flipped. Well, I was able to flip bias and get long. I think it was around. Let me pull up the chart. I want to say it was around like 12 or something like that. So it ripped super hard off the lows in like it was mid 2021, so like June 2021, and I was short all alts. I was short after May. I got like hit hard in May. I was like, I got to flip bias, so I'm shorting alts. I'm short alts from like May through June, printing on shorts, like covering near the bottom, like trading really well. And then Axie was the only altcoin that started making new highs, and it started making new highs literally a month before the market flipped. So in my head, I'm already bearish, I'm like super bearish on the market. I'm like, this stuff is going down. Like I need to be in shorts. And then Axie started going up, and I was like, well, do I need to get long this? And I ended up getting long even after it like ripped super hard. It did like a 3x off the lows or something like that, crazy like that. And it went from like 3 to 9, and it was near all time highs. And people were like, "This is a fade." Um, like Axie is not that good of a game. Like blah blah blah, like all this stuff. And I ended up being able to kind of like switch my bias pretty quickly and get long on Axie, and it was like one of my best trades. It went from like it went over 100. And I was long from like a 12 or whatever it was. Long, and then I added on like the retest, got more long, and I printed off that, and then I was able to switch um and get long Solana too when the other stuff, like when the alt started following. That's why I say it's always good to have alerts on all of your tickers, because the leaders of altcoins kind of will give you hints towards when the market is shifting direction. Like even this year, the leaders were like kind of leading before Bitcoin and Ethereum really started getting strong. And if you were able to be long those, you kind of didn't really have to care about what the rest of the market was doing if you're able to be in the leaders. And that's something that I got pretty good at last cycle. So that's probably one of my best. And then the other one was like Solana, um, around like later that year. I want to say it was probably like August or something, because I thought Bitcoin was gonna rip really hard, and I was like heavy in Bitcoin, and then I was able to flip from Bitcoin to Sol, and I got long from like up into 200. That was probably my, I would say those are the two.
I think flipping that bias or where you're coming from is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're on the timeline, and most often everyone's kind of thinking in one direction, or like
Yeah,
they're either bullish or bearish. So like how do you navigate that from a strategic perspective, drowning out the noise and just trying to see what's real?
it's hard, man. I always say that I don't really trust anybody else's opinion more than mine on the market. So like when I'm wrong because I was wrong. If I'm right though, it's because of my own thesis and my own thinking on the market. I try not to be relying on other people or like try and counter trade sentiment that much, because it messes with your head, and it's like, oh, this guy is a bad trader. He's bullish, so now I can't be bullish. And if you do that like in bull markets, especially when stuff gets erratic and irrational, you're gonna end up losing money, just trying to fade people, for no really reason outside of your, like your own process. So I would say like the biggest thing is to stick to your own process, whatever that is, to have that. And I consistently say always journal nonstop all of your trades, because you can see what your thought process is in real time and what it was prior to. So say I'm like I have my Solana thesis, right? And I'm like, I know this thing's probably gonna be sideways for a while, but eventually it's gonna reprice. It goes down to like 15, and then I'm like, oh damn, am I wrong? Should I be selling here? Should I be exiting in my position? But if I go back and read what I said, in, like what I was journaling, it's like it could be volatile for a while in this range, but as long as it sticks generally in this area, I'm looking to add spot until it starts trending again. And I think that helps people a lot if you can go back and reference where your head was at prior to, because when your emotions get involved, you're gonna flip, in real time. You like you may not be have the same clear mind that you did before. So that's always big for me.
Mm.
Did you
And
ever lose that conviction as well, like at any point throughout the last bear market or even previously? And I don't just mean Solana, I mean for crypto in general.
I don't think so on crypto in general. I don't think so on crypto in general. No. I never really had that that doubt about what I thought the future could be. I've always been a pretty like super bull on crypto, so it's not really hard for me. But yeah, no, I've never been that way. I'm not one of the people who gets like pessimistic during bear, like, oh, it's only for gambling, that's only for this, because it's pretty easy for me to see the bigger picture of like why fundamentally crypto is important. Um,
and
so
it
that's
it
what it
it
is.
sounds like listening to you talk, it's a you almost have like a mixture or a combination of like some people just trade fundamentals and some people just trade price action. And
Mm,
it sounds like you just kind of you take both of them, blend them together, and when something checks like both boxes, that's when you form the thesis. Is that like more or less right, or is it like more price action or more fundamental driven?
it's definitely more price action for taking the actual positions, but it's a combo of both evenly. Like I'm not really going to be looking heavily at a chart that I think is fundamentally not sound for long term, but I still might take a momentum trade on it. So that's why it's like I have my left curve bags where it's like I know this shit might be a scam. It's probably not worth all that much long term, but I know how crypto trades and I know how momentum trades work, and I know this is breaking out of whatever range. And it may have some kind of narrative that other people can easily attach onto. There's some narratives in crypto that I don't agree with, but I can see why a group of people would agree with them, and that's really how you can make money while still keeping your own theses on other bags. So that's why I say I have like my 70% of my portfolio stuff like Solana, stuff like Coinbase, stuff like Bitcoin Prime, those bags where it's like I already have my thesis on those. I don't need to be worried about holding them for a long period of time. And then in the other, like the smaller portion of your portfolio, you can just do all the momentum trades, like stuff like Cardano. I don't think Cardano is worth anything really, but there may be a point in time where I think a trade setup is good, and I know how retail works in crypto markets, and they're going to be like, yeah, I'm all in Cardano for who knows, God knows what, for whatever reason.
What
Um,
is, yeah, it's always been a mystery. For whatever reason, it's
I
like
don't know,
Ripple and Cardano are
bro. Like
just, it was like the Coinbase effect for Ripple, but Cardano's like, I guess
it's
there's like a
crazy.
whole YouTube side that CT doesn't see as much. I think Cardano like crushes YouTube content,
And it's
but I
not
have no
even
idea.
like dumb people, bro. It's like software engineers, like senior software engineers that are like, yo, I'm all in Ripple, or like I'm all in like even stuff like Hex. Like it's nuts. Honestly, that made that like looking back at what pumped so high this last cycle, like Hex was number three by market cap at some point. And CoinGecko wouldn't even list it. Like they wouldn't show it. They wouldn't show it on the top 10 because they're like, no, this is a scam. But some sites listed it and it literally was number three. It went to like 50 billion. But that's social. It's like social tokens. That's the way I think of it. Like the CEO was really good at convincing people that his coin was worth a lot, like more than
Hmm.
what it actually was. And it never really needed to prove that it was worth something because there was nothing you could really do on it during the bull market. And there's situations like that in crypto where it's like the social signaling is so strong to people that stuff just gets priced way higher than it should. Um, Honestly, even stuff like I don't think actually it's not a scam, but like it went to fucking like 40 billion, or whatever was something crazy last cycle. Like the speculative premium that gets put on altcoins in crypto markets because of how they trade is crazy. Um, Even
I
for
feel like
like
it,
solid projects, they get priced super high. So it's like you have to be wary of that when you're trading these markets. Both
I
ways,
feel like it
honestly, they go
almost
lower
like,
too.
yeah, like it might dilute even the real projects that are like doing something that's super useful, right? Like I think we can all agree that Solana has a ton of real fundamental value. Like
Hmm.
there is a lot that Solana can enable in the real world that are like the net positives of crypto.
Yep.
But things like Hex pumping to $40 billion, right? Everyone just kind of writes it. They're like, well, how do you know Hex? Like to them, they're like, well, the market cap's the same. How do you
It's the
know
same.
Hex is a
Yeah.
scam and Solana's not? Like, how do you even decipher that? And I think they just write it all off as like this gray area that they'll never understand. So pick some of them and like you just kind of root for them and you gamble. Um, and I don't know, like there are positives that come from it, right? Like crypto definitely has gotten the attention that it's gotten because of price action.
Yeah.
Like price action is the best marketing tool for all of crypto, like for sure. Um, so like Solana and all of these projects that are doing something that's actually net beneficial to society, like wouldn't be at the place that they're at without these other things pumping. But then it's almost hard to like, okay, well, if they're interleaved in this way where price action and all of these things go together, no one can distinguish the two. It's hard to set, even for people that spend all day, every day thinking and talking about crypto. It's hard to split the two. Um, it'll be interesting to see what I think. Like maybe like on an industry wide next leg up, you do start to separate some of the signal from the noise there, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it gets easier as crypto grows and we have more real applications. Outside of like DeFi stuff is obviously very cool, but outside of just DeFi, when we have real crypto protocols that are kind of interwoven with big companies, like big tech companies, whatever, like stuff like like all the DPEN, I think the DPEN players are going to be interesting this cycle. Like a lot of those. But just generally, like when there's businesses that are making money and people are using them on a daily basis that are crypto teams, then it'll be easier for people to distinguish between what's purely a scam or purely narrative driven and what's actually has value. So it's like I think this cycle in the next few years, and we'll see a lot more of that because we have the infrastructure now, and like we've proven, I think a lot of crypto's use cases. So it'll be a lot easier to show that.
We're kind of teeing up one of my next questions perfectly, so I want to jump into it. What do you think are some narratives that are going to be really top of mind, or that you're seeing already in the market?
Um, Still strong. L1 narrative is still super strong. You kind of see it with how strong Solana has been, even stuff like AVAX pumping. Um, a lot of these L1s who have advantages over what Ethereum can do, like they're cheaper, faster to use, more performant, um, and they like have a better user experience than using ETH mainnet in its current state. As long as that is true and they have those advantages there, I think the L1 trade is going to keep working until you have a few tech and developer and users just like focus there. Like the L2 trade is still obviously a big one, and they're working through a lot of things to be competitive with stuff like Solana. So I think that's also going to be one of the big narratives. But the modular thesis for me is kind of getting broken down into parts. So you have stuff like Celestia, which recently just launched mainnet. They're focused entirely on being a modular data availability layer. And in their current state, it'll be cheaper for rollups to post data to Celestia and then settle on Ethereum or settle on some other chain, or for sovereign rollups to just post their data to Celestia, and they don't need a settlement layer. So it's like you're gonna optimize every piece of that modular stack, in my opinion, over the next few years. And even for all the execution layers, which like the rollups that focus purely on execution, they're gonna need to be able to compete with stuff like Solana, um, on TPS, on user experience, on like on how low the fees are. And if they can't compete there, then I think you're gonna have issues with onboarding users. 4844 EIP 4844 is gonna be big for Ethereum and their ecosystem, and those rollups. I want to say it's January or estimated to be January, but it should be a lot cheaper for rollups to post their all their transactions to mainnet once that is through. But it's definitely it's going to be hugely competitive, L1s and L2s for onboarding users this cycle. Like because nobody has any allegiance to any chain. That's the biggest thing that people I think have seen these past few months is people before were like nobody's ever going to leave Ethereum, and that's not true. And the user experience is better. And there's applications there that are competitive with their ETH counterparts. People are going to move. Like it's not hard to move your money from chain to chain. It's really not difficult. And you consider all of the other retail participants who aren't in crypto, which is the larger, honestly, the much larger group of people, other than just us degenerates on crypto Twitter every day. What are they going to think about using ETH versus Solana versus Arbitrum versus Optimism? They don't care. They don't know what any of those words even mean. They don't care. They're just gonna use like whatever the best apps are. They really don't care. And I think that's why these trades for these different infra plays are gonna keep working because we're nowhere near onboarding the entirety of the world to crypto. Like we're super early in that regard.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to like, if that is the next, and I mean, we all are in full time in crypto, right? And probably the vast majority of people listening to this are all full time in crypto. Like we all believe that there are use cases that will be very net positive to society enabled by crypto in the future. If that is the thesis, you have to imagine that, it's not 10,000 daily active users that it makes a difference for, right? It's like millions, right? To get to the top 10 on the iOS App Store, I think you need something like 1 million daily active users. And in order, like, if you're a top 10 app, you have 1 million daily active users, and say on average people do like 50 interactions with the app per day, right? Like say that could be like a like on Twitter, whatever, but like say it's 50. That's 50 million transactions per day, like for just a normal standalone app. Like
Right.
Ethereum L1 handles like 1 million, about 1 million transactions per day.
Yeah.
Um, 10,000 TPS, which, Monad on mainnet will be able to enable, is a billion, right? So like you need to at least be at a level where you can support an app that can reach scale before you have these apps that actually do onboard all these users. Um, I feel like it has been. I think people write off cryptos. They're like, well, what's the actual use case? Like, where's the product market fit with crypto? Like, you have these kind of Jehovah's Witness, which are Bitcoin maxis, and they're like telling you that money isn't real. And then you have these people talk about smart contracts, but like, I've never seen it change the world. Like, when is that going to happen? Um, and I think that there's been a few stages, right? There was kind of the Bitcoin, like just early Bitcoin days, and then the Ethereum was created, and it kind of opened up everyone's imagination to what's possible. But I don't think that you've had an environment that can enable like true 1 million daily active user apps until like Solana kind of main charactered in 2021. So call it like September 2021 was the first time people were really thinking about like, this is an app that has that requires high throughput, low fees to function. So I think we've only really had like 2 years of crypto development that would be like at a consumer phase that's aiming for consumer or like retail scale. Um, so it's not like, oh, crypto's been around for 13 years, where's the product market fit? It's like there's been 2 years where the layer that it's running on can actually enable these apps and use cases. Like
Literally.
I think
No,
there's way more that's going to come out of this.
I agree 100%. I think that's a great way to frame it. It's like we're super, super early. Even though crypto may have been around since what, 2012 or whatever, 2009. As you said, like the time frame for which we've had people working on like real world apps for people, it's super, super small. And that's just because it's hard to build out all this. Like it's hard to build this tech. It takes a while. Like these new industries take a while to build out. People don't. I think the best comparable to make is to like early 2000s in tech. A lot of those tech companies died in the early 2000s, and there was still a huge amount of value that emerged from that, like all what Facebook, Amazon, like Apple, Google, all those companies. But in 2000, it wasn't clear what that was going to look like 20 years out from now. So I think crypto's in a similar spot right now where it's like we need to be looking forward 20 years. I think crypto's going to be around for long, like a very long time. So I don't want to be short-sighted in my theses for just on what the market looks like right now. I definitely agree that like there hasn't been a ton until very recently of like actually infra that people can build on outside of just pure DeFi stuff that doesn't really require that much TPS.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
of like oh sorry, Dave. Just to put a cap on the thought, right? Like if you think about what most of the internet traffic is today, it's like social media and YouTube potentially. Um, the internet in like 1998 couldn't even support, like it was not fast enough. There wasn't enough bandwidth to even support these applications, right? So like you needed to really open up what was possible to build. And then once there was this environment, then all of the entrepreneurs think like, oh, well, I can do this, like this is possible. And I feel like that's really what's happened in the last, like I think Solana was the first one to like truly pull it off and have something that does scale at a high level. I think Mana will be very similar.
Yep.
But it'll be the first time that people are like, oh, holy shit. Like they don't have to think about throughput constraints or bandwidth. It's just like, oh, this can absolutely support all the transactions that I need it to. It's under a cent to do everything. There's no cost. Like I can build these cool apps that are at the core running with like swaps, or like I can build a game where 1 million people can be trading NFTs back and forth, and I don't have to worry. It's not even a thought that like the chain can't support it. It's not a thought that like, oh, well, if gas goes to $200, my entire app dies for like 10 days and all my users are dead and everyone's poor. Like, is it like it wasn't possible before, and it just recently became possible at a high level.
Right.
I think the app, like I'm most bullish on crypto apps. Like I think that's really going to be like the next 2 years. I think apps become main character. Like I feel like L1s have been main character. I think the first few apps that hit it are going to hit it harder than anything that's ever happened in crypto.
100%. And that's kind of what I was going to say to compound this whole thing. The apps that we see today and in like the previous years, a lot of the biggest apps that people were coming into in 21, they're built for degens. Like you can literally draw the pyramid or the Ponzi around like their mechanics and their model. So what do you think some of those areas, obviously social's huge, gaming's pretty big, but what do you think some of those apps are going to look like once we have, this infrastructure in place to support this quote unquote mass adoption?
That's what I'm focusing on the most this cycle because I don't know what that's going to look like. And I agree with Kevin that the upside is going to be the most there because if you can figure out those plays, it's like that's where the most upside is going to be. But yes, it's much harder thing to do, like figure out which apps are going to win. I think a good example is one is Drip House. So Drip House on Solana, they're like a free NFT platform. Essentially, they let artists release art every week, and they utilize Solana's compressed NFTs, which is where you can mint millions of NFTs for like hundreds of dollars. It's super, super cheap comparatively to other chains where it's a lot more expensive. So they release tons and tons of art every week to like 300K plus people. And that's one of the apps that's like done the best this year with onboarding users to Solana. And you can even track the metrics where it's like somebody had zero like Solana in their wallet, then they use Drip. And then after you use Drip, they like started using other DeFi applications and other applications on Solana. And that's really cool onboarding mechanism that I think we've shown this year. Social's the most interesting for me. I think the incentive alignment is much better or can be much better in crypto than it is in traditional media and traditional social apps where it's like you're basically the product, ads make money off you, and users don't really benefit from their growth on social media, as well as you don't really get incentivized for like building the connections there. And I think crypto can be a really cool way to design some kind of new social app that makes that possible. um
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure, dude. It's honestly the best I
Yeah,
think time spent like researching that is like what apps are gonna blow up.
I feel like I think stable coins are actually like one of the largest markets that like crypto is uniquely enabled to address, just like payment rails in general. Um, and I think it's like there's a confluence of a few things that make it true. One, like that was kind of the original promise of Bitcoin, right? It's like peer-to-peer cash, like you're paying for things with crypto. So like it hits the initial vision of like what people want to use it for. It's a massive, like payments in general is a massive market. Like Visa and MasterCard, I think they do about like 2,000 transactions per second, and they're ripping fees on the entire thing. So it's one thing where the solution is objectively better than the current Web2 standard, which we don't see a lot in crypto. Um,
Yep.
you want to tackle things that like are uniquely enabled by crypto and that are better than whatever the current system is. And then layered on top of that, if you take like I know Mountain Protocol and Ondo, they're doing yield bearing stable coins. So it's like right now you have Venmo, right? And that's how everyone or Venmo or Cash App, that's like how everyone pays their friends for whatever. Like you don't need cash. Venmo has obvious
Yep.
product market fit.
Yep.
Um, if you're holding a stable coin and you're just getting T-bill interest dropped into your account on top of that, um, that is objectively better than current Venmo. It's just Venmo plus interest in your account. And it's not like savings account interest. It's like true T-bill interest or like 90% of it. Um, that's objectively better than the current system. So I think you get like the narrative obviously works. There's like true product market fit. Like there's a lot of countries in Africa that are currently using Tether to pay for everything because they want to access to dollars. In South America, same thing. So there's already the fit. And then I think like if you can just get it to a level where it's as easy to use as any credit card, like I can just tap my phone to pay and it's just going to pull from like my stablecoin pile, or I'm sending my friends that via Venmo. Like I think that that's gonna, I don't know, it's less sexy than like the gaming side, right? Like if you had this massive game and everyone's like slinging 100K NFTs for like gun skins and stuff. But I think that like truly pushes, like, I think Tron has done a lot more for crypto than it gets credit for. Like, like for real, like all they are is like a tether chain, but they crush it and like everyone
Yeah.
uses them for it. So that's a massive market, right? Like payments in general, it just hits so many different levels.
I think like the product market fit side of things, specifically obviously within this niche of crypto, is challenged. Obviously, one, you have to have a good app that is better than the system that you're replacing. But also, after 21, with so much attention on crypto, so many spotlights on the scams, you also have the narrative battle at the same time, that even if something is better than its web 2 counterpart, you have to sell it and get people to actually use it. And Ansem, you got me thinking when you mentioned Drip House. I noticed on Twitter, not sure if you guys saw this, but recently, I think it was Vib, the founder of Drip House, reached out publicly on Twitter to this guy who creates a lot of free gaming assets, free gaming skins, and just kind of distributes them to anyone who's trying to build their own game. And he was saying like, hey, this is objectively better essentially than the system you're using. You can, with credit, with attribution, you can distribute these free gaming assets as NFTs. And the guy was like super turned off, like blocked him on Twitter, was like memeing the whole thing, like, look at these NFT bros. So I think it's going to be like a really challenging battle to overcome that normie perception. Do you think a good app is enough?
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, dude. I don't know how NFTs got associated with being a scam so hard the last cycle. I think part of it was because a lot of people lost money on them, and they were like, yeah, people were talking about NFTs as some revolutionary technology. We're just scamming you, trying to get you to buy high while they were up high. But so it's definitely gonna be somewhat difficult to change that narrative formation. I think we need a lot more voices in crypto who kind of are in touch with that. Those, I don't know how to do it, but like those retail people who have no idea what crypto is, and be able to convey to them in a understandable way, like, no, that these applications are not scams. Like it's no different really from using the other apps you have on your phone. It's just like slightly different in its architecture and what's underneath. Um, so I think that's going to be a big thing. Like we need more voices that are somehow can break through to people outside of just us nerds on Twitter. But I do think you can have a viral app that breaks out and can do that purely just off being a good app. And one of the reasons I'm so bullish on Parallel is because they kind of their go to market is focused on not just looking at crypto and Web3 users, but also looking at Web2 users. So they are, I want to say they're on, not Steam, what's the other one? It might be Steam. But like, if you're just like gamer, you can play Parallel with no crypto. You don't need a crypto address. You can just play the game, whatever, buy the cards, whatever, get like your free packs to start playing. And that's gonna be like a huge unlock for them if they can tap into that market of like Hearthstone players, other just regular trading card game players, and they see Parallel as an equivalent there, don't even really know that it's crypto. And then they're like, oh, but I can buy the actual in-game assets as NFTs. That makes sense. Now I own these things that I'm playing with actually in my wallet. And then, oh, maybe I want to buy Prime or buy whatever the other tokens are in game and benefit from the growth of that ecosystem. So I think it's kind of like a stealth. It's like a Trojan horse kind of thing, where it's like games are really good, really have a really good mechanism of doing that. But also NFT apps like Drip House have a cool way of doing that because it's completely free. You can't really have people say that you're scamming them if it's free. It's free. It's like you're not losing any money. Either you like using the app and you keep using it, or you don't like using the app and you stop using it. There's no real risk from a user perspective on testing things out like Drip House. So I think we need more of those applications in crypto. I always say that like it's twofold my thesis for the upcoming cycle. It's like gambling has been huge the past few years, and I think that's going to continue to accelerate. And crypto obviously is like one of the easiest ways people can gamble on literally anything. But then on the flip side of that, we also need some applications in crypto that display the fundamental value of the space without people needing to bet money on things. So it's like it's twofold. but that's why I'm gonna buy stuff like Robit, whatever SCS, and I'm also gonna have Solana. So it's like I need in my portfolio, I'm gonna be trading both things always.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be a combination of people not knowing that the good app is actually like powered by crypto.
Yes.
Um, and then also a little bit of a combination of what we've seen with Solana over the last 5 months of like, oh, you can write it off when it's low. But like once it's cool to like crypto again, right? Like Solana at $20, no one really wanted to buy it. It was easy to dunk on. But the second it hits
Yep.
50, like I think it literally on stream right now, it just hit 83. The second it hits 50, you're
Shit.
like, oh, this might actually be something good. Like you price makes you
Yeah,
flip bias. So like once it's
bro.
cool again to like know what's going on in crypto, I think the combination of those two is just like the amount of core people who care about crypto every cycle grows and grows. And
Yep.
like you're not
Yep.
gonna make get the core group to be like 7 billion people. Um, but every time the core group grows, you get 10 other people who are like on the fringe or like maybe curious, and then they're willing to try that up. I think sports betting is definitely one of those areas where like it is better to run it through crypto than it is with the Web2 alternative.
Yep.
Just the Web2 alternative has like, all the users, right? So it's like if you have the advantage that the product is better, you just need a great company running it, um, and then they're gonna be able to eat up market share. But yeah, that like just got unlocked. Like I think Massachusetts and New York like just legalized sports betting, and I know like way more than ever before. All of my friends have been like talking about it. They're like, "Oh, who's hitting this bet? Who's?" They're like, they want to throw like $5, $10 parlays to make like 3 grand.
Yep.
Um, there's no better place to do that than crypto. If you like gambling on stuff, even sports, like crypto's gonna make that experience way better.
No, I agree 100%. 100%. It's like price is super reflexive, but it's usually beneficial in a way, but it's also why you have Bitcoin maxis, you have ETH maxis, because they were so confirmed in their theses by price going up that they can't see the stuff any other way. Like if you bought honestly, like if you bought Bitcoin at $10 and shit went to 20K, I'm not that mad at you for being a Bitcoin maxi. Cause like you know what I'm saying? It's like you're up so ridiculously, what 2000x or whatever it is. And that's why a lot of those people are like, yeah, like fuck ETH. Like I don't like we don't need that. Like why do we need another coin? Bitcoin's the only crypto. Like blah blah blah. And in the same way, it's like all the ETH people when Ethereum came out, they were hated on by everybody, held through all of that hate from the Bitcoin crowd, build out real applications, build out like DeFi and all of those first applications through their first bear market where people were shitting on them in the same way, were confirmed by price going up, went from like 80 to 4K. And then now they're like, fuck everybody else. Like we were right, you were wrong. We don't need another L1. All L1s are scams. And it's just like it's human nature, really. It's difficult to overcome that and be able to see different scenarios. It's just generally how markets work. But it is interesting in crypto. It's like amplified in crypto because we're all in the same place, like talking about this shit 24/7. I feel like it's like you like your cults are right next to you every day.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation so far is we are certainly still in the Wild West. And along those lines, what do you think will be the top signals in this upcoming market, or at least what are some indicators that you'll look at?
The top signals this time are gonna just be so outlandish. Um, we don't even know
Insane.
because last cycle we had every celebrity on earth in FTX. We had Tom Brady on FTX. We had what Giselle on FTX. We had all these big name people like shilling FTX super hard. Dude was like interfacing with congressmen and Democrats and all that stuff. He was like the golden boy. So that's already happened. So it's like, what, how crazy, how much crazier can it get than that? Because then if we see that again, is that going to be confirmation this time, or is it going to be a top signal? Because what's difficult for me to kind of differentiate between, it's like usually when you have people who have no idea what crypto is, when they start talking about crypto, it's like the next biggest thing. that's usually like when you're starting to get near the top. It's like people who have no idea about crypto start shilling it like they've been studying it for 10 years. That's usually when you get near the top. But if this cycle is the one where we have that actual product market fit and we actually breach all of those retail consumers and we have applications that they're using on a daily basis, instead of just like purely trading on Uniswap or Jupiter or whatever it is, and they're like, yeah, we're huge supporters of crypto, that's not a bearish thing really. So I'm hesitant to be all on the I guess on the lookout for top signals from a social perspective, because I think in a lot of ways it can be confirmation that we're actually doing a good job. So
There, there's a
I'm wary of that. But I think looking at like TA is always my go-to for figuring out whether we're topped out or not. Like I'm pretty good at seeing when we have like false all time like false breakouts, like when we're in a like parabola, like when you should be selling TA to figure that out. So that's what I'm gonna lean on. But I think it could get weird, man, because it got weird last cycle. And if this cycle we go higher than what we did last time we were what, like 3 trillion total market cap. Um, like if we go whatever, like over 6 trillion plus, that's pretty significant. Like that's a pretty big market.
mhm.
So it's like, what do the top signals look like then? I have no idea. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that there's this I'm pretty sure it's Suzu, but there's a quote from like November of 2021, which I think about all
Yeah,
the time, and it's just like
yeah,
uh, in a bull market, like top signals are indistinguishable from mass adoption.
yeah.
And it's
Signs of
like
froth
you're in
are
this industry.
indistinguishable or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And CL resurfaced it the other day, which is hilarious. RIP, CL's supposed to be on this pod too. Um, but yeah, it's like, okay, you have been betting on crypto for years and years and years because you think it's going to hit mass adoption levels. And then the second that you start to actually get mass adoption, like if it truly does come where apps are hitting like millions of daily active users, like that's when you're going to sell your entire stack. So I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
funny that like we look for top sig.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, what were you betting on this whole time?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
yeah, it is a funny. Yeah, top signals are always different, like because the size and the scale of what's happening so much. Like I'm pretty sure UPS or FedEx was tweeting about NFTs in like March
Bro,
of 2022. Like maybe that's like actually pretty good signal, but
like, bro, we've had like so in the past during the bear market, we had Vanek put out a research report on Solana targeting 3K at like $25 or whatever it was. And people will usually be like, that's a top signal. But it was literally in the middle of bear, and Vanek is one of the biggest like, ETF providers in the US. We had Visa write a report on Solana. We had what else is using T-Mobile partnering with Helium. Like there's a ton of different huge like corporations that are like, no, crypto has value. And it's not, we're not even really bullish yet. So yeah, I'm wary of doing that, like looking for top signals, and it's like, damn, I sell all my stuff, and then it goes up 4x more. I'm like, damn, why did I do that? I was confirmed being right, and I sold because I was right. Like that's not smart.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, along those same lines, like normally the harder they go up, the harder they come down in these cycles. Do you think this next one ends up with another Luna type event? And if so, what do you think it is?
Oh, I hope not, dude. I don't want to do any of the like those mechanisms that can break really easily. I feel like everybody is kind of on guard for shit like that this cycle. So I hope we don't have any blowups like that. But you're always gonna have those leverage events where people are gonna get wiped out. That's just how crypto trades. It's gonna happen regardless. So the OI, like huge OI wipes, is always gonna happen. You're always gonna have those like flash crashes in crypto. Um, I just hope it doesn't take down literally a top five coin to zero. I hope so. I hope not. But I think we started to see a little bit of how we're being more cautious with some designs of things. So FTX, obviously, their issue was they didn't have any really um, mechanisms for risk. Like they were doing a ton of things behind shady stuff behind the scenes that should have been seen and wasn't, because they weren't like very transparent. Unlike how DeFi operates, which everything is transparent. And a lot of these newer exchanges, stuff like Cube is a good one, like the Backpack Exchange is probably another good one, but they're focused on that whole transparency side of things, where like you'll be able to check all the balances, like still have access to your funds, and like won't have the same issues that you did with FTX. That's like kind of one of the, I think, like examples of how we're moving in the right direction with stuff like that. And hopefully also on the stable coin design, we do the same thing. It's just like there were a ton of researchers who tried to call out Luna last cycle and tried to warn people about it, and nobody really listened to them. But I think a lot of those smart people who saw that, people are going to listen to them a lot more this time. And those are like a lot of the smarter voices in crypto. So hopefully we don't, but there's always going to be some crazy shit that happens.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like, like people will get on Twitter and say like, send money to this contract and I may rug it. And then next thing you know, they have like millions of dollars in the account. So to me, it has to come from the top down. It has to come from like the people actually working on and like building these applications, because it's pretty clear that obviously the market is full of degens currently. They want to make money. And if you give them an opportunity, they will take it, whether it's high risk or not.
Yeah, bro, the address stuff is so crazy to me. Like, and it'd be random people too. Sometimes it just be anonymous people. Sometimes it be people that you clearly know are trying to scam you, and they still get like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's so wild to me that consistently happens over and over. It's insane. It's really insane.
I don't know if it ever works out, but we can hope. I think one thing too that we haven't touched on yet that's going to be really big for crypto is just like the background increase in internet adoption. And at this point, looking at the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of really internet native kids that become adults, and they're fully entering the world, if you will, in 5 to 10 years.
I think what CL's like says frequently about how everybody is moving online is a good frame of thinking for it. So we're um terminally online. I mean, I feel like I've been terminally online way before everybody else was, but now it's like a lot of people who work remote, have remote jobs, are way on their phones more. If you look at phone usage, like internet usage, like all that stuff, it's like just up and to the right, up and to the right. And in a society where most people work remote, always have access to the internet, that's in my head, that's great for crypto because everybody's always has access to crypto and these applications and stuff. People like the people who are a lot of my boys, like some of my boys who do like finance, do tech, and like kind of missed crypto the past few cycles and saw me like trading crypto. Now they're like, okay, bro, like this time I'm gonna pay attention. Like I'm gonna actually try this stuff out. I'm gonna listen to you. So like when they're home, like working, they'll hit me up and be like, yo, I'm looking at this. Like, can you help me out with this? And that's easy for people to do if you're remote and like obviously have your computer on your laptop, whatever. I think that explorative phase in crypto is going to be really, really big this cycle. Kind of was last cycle also, but if there's more applications on top of just DeFi stuff, it's going to be even more so this cycle. I think everybody is going to be just more and more online.
Couldn't agree more, for sure. And you're kind of segueing into this, but before we wrap up here, wanna get a sense for like what tips or guidance would you give someone who's maybe considering getting into crypto now, maybe will over the next couple months, and talking about someone with no trading experience, so they don't know technical analysis, they probably don't have a software engineering background, so they can't necessarily look into a lot of these different products and vet out which ones are actually viable and which ones are not. Maybe they're just internet native folks. How can they get involved in this space on as safe a plane as possible?
Could you repeat the
Yeah, for sure. So how can someone who's just internet native but doesn't have a finance or a software background get into crypto safely, or what precautions can they take to do so?
yeah, I mean, What's the best way? I think a lot of it. What is a really good onboarding mechanism? So the Coinbase has a lot of good like tutorials and stuff for new users. I would look at those. Um, I would say the first thing you want to do before if you have no like background experience in crypto, first thing you do, go get a hardware wallet. So go buy what Ledger, Trezor, honestly probably Trezor. I don't Ledger has recently had some issues. I'm gonna say Trezor or Lattice or like Lattice is another good one. So go get a hardware wallet. Hardware wallet is essentially where you can store your crypto, not just on some Chrome app extension on your computer. Like the most secure way to store your crypto. So first thing I would do is do that. It's like basically like having your bank account with you for crypto. So I'll do that first. And then I would say honestly to get active on crypto Twitter, there's a ton of information there. So it's hard to like dig through it all at the same time. But I would get a group of your friends and just start following people there. And then you kind of can have it's easier to navigate things in a group chat because if you have no background knowledge on crypto, you're gonna get overwhelmed really quickly with all the information you're trying to digest. But if you have some friends looking at it with you, then it's easier to bounce questions off of people and think through things. So I'll say get active on crypto Twitter, set up your Coinbase account, get a hardware wallet. I would buy just a little bit of crypto and start using some of these applications. Probably the easiest route I would say you can do like Solana, start using stuff like Drip House, which is free app for like receiving NFTs from artists. MarginFi, you can deposit your funds there, get like yield on lending out your Solana or your stables to people who want to borrow them and trade with them. You could trade, like if you're starting trading, you could use something like Drift or Zeta, Jupiter for swaps between different protocols, stuff like Tensor for trading NFTs. I would just get like a little bit of money in and then start playing around with stuff and be active on Twitter and start asking people questions. But do it in like a group way. I would say you don't really need a technical background to use any of these applications. Maybe to understand the trade-offs in between. There's a ton of different podcasts that you can look up. Like this is obviously a good one. There's a lot of good ones. The Blockworks guys have a lot of really good content on theirs. So I would look at those. If you ever want to hear directly from founders, like why they think their project is important in crypto, you can just go through a lot of the Blockworks guys pods because they do a really good job, and that's probably a good place to start as a beginner. Um, we're not really talking about trading, right? Like I don't really know like trading and stuff, but just generally using stuff. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I
And
would.
of course, follow Ansem, follow Intern, follow the pipeline and Monad.
Yeah. I'll try and help you out.
Yeah, I would for sure echo everything that that Ansem said in terms of like what you should be looking at, easy ways to get involved and start trying out some applications. I would say like one of the most important things on top of that I've seen as well is just like getting a group of people that also are interested in doing the same stuff and just like be chatting with them all the time. Like your crew becomes like the guys who you're doing all the same stuff with. Like you just have 4 or 5 people that are now all looking at cool opportunities, things to test out. And then it's also just like more fun, right? It's like playing a video game by yourself or like playing it with your buddies. Like you always want to have like the mic on, be in the lobby. So yeah.
Huge. I mean, from personal experience, Intern once upon a time invited me to a group chat, and I never left. So the proof's in the pudding to a degree. Think this is a great place to wrap up here. Really appreciate you coming on, Ansem and Kevin. Thank you guys.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it, Danny.
Absolutely. Let's run it back soon.
Cool.
Yeah.